Right now, lying here in the quiet, you are probably attempting the one thing the human mind is worst at doing on purpose. You are trying to stop thinking, to let the day go soft at the edges and finally fall still. And from the inside, it feels like turning off a light, like the mind going dark and empty and quiet. But inside your skull, the truth is almost exactly the opposite of that. At this very moment, your brain is running on something like 20 watts of power, about the same as a dim bulb left burning in a hallway overnight. And here is the odd thing. It spends nearly all of that energy, whether you are wrestling with a hard problem or lying perfectly still in the dark, thinking about nothing in particular at all. The work of concentrating, of really bearing down on something difficult, adds less than 5% to the total. Less than 5%. Almost everything your brain does. It does when you are not asking it to do anything. And here is the part that took science the better part of 100 years to accept. For a long time, when researchers looked at the resting brain, at all that soft electrical humming going on beneath the surface, they decided it was noise, background static, the grey snow on an old television tuned between channels. They were so certain that a brain at rest was a brain doing nothing of interest that they spent years carefully subtracting it away, treating it as the empty baseline you measure everything else against. It turned out they were throwing away the main event. This is not a poetic way of speaking. It has been measured in living people, inside real scanners, and in the slow electrical weather of sleeping animals, the mind you usually think of as you, the one that plans and worries and narrates your day in a small, familiar voice. That voice goes quiet when you finally let go, and something else rises up to take its place. Something older and stranger and astonishingly busy. It has been running underneath the whole time. The way a deep current keeps moving beneath the calm surface of a river. You only notice it now. In moments like this one, when the surface at last goes smooth. So we are going to follow that current tonight, slowly, and all the way down, from the very first time anyone managed to hear the brain at all, to what is happening inside your own head in the next few minutes. As you slip towards sleep, there is no hurry, and nothing you need to hold on to. If you drift off somewhere in the middle of all this, that is not a failure. That is the whole idea. The ideas will still be here when you wake. So will the current. It does not need you awake to keep flowing. Because by the end, you will understand something quietly amazing. The moments when you stop thinking are not empty at all. They are when the most important work of your inner life actually gets done. When the day is sorted and folded away into memory. When the sense of being you is gently rebuilt for tomorrow. When the brain, in a way we are only just beginning to understand, washes itself clean in the dark. The thing you are doing right now, this letting go, is one of the most active things a person ever does. And the secret life of the mind once you stop steering it. That is what we are going to talk about. Here, in the dark, tonight. To feel how strange all of this is, you have to go back to a time when no one had ever heard the brain. Not so very long ago, the living human mind was the most familiar thing in the world and also completely sealed off. A locked room everyone lived inside and no one could see into. You could open a skull on an operating table and look at the soft, folded tissue, grey and faintly pink, about 3 pounds of it, and learn almost nothing about what it was doing. The thoughts, the dreams, the whole interior life left no visible trace at all. Even the people whose whole lives were given to the mind, the philosophers and the doctors and the earliest scientists, were in a strange position. They were trying to understand the very thing they were using to do the understanding, the mind examining itself from the inside, with no way to step outside and look. It is a little like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. And for thousands of years, there simply was no mirror to be had. And the scale of what was hidden in there is almost impossible to picture. Inside that soft 3-pound mass sits something like 86 billion nerve cells, each one reaching out to thousands of others, weaving a tangle of connections whose number runs up into the trillions. All of it folded into a space smaller than your 2 hands cupped together. Every memory you have, every face you love, every word you know, the entire feeling of being yourself, somehow lives in there. In the patterns of electricity moving through that tangle, and until almost yesterday, in the long span of human history, no one could see a single flicker of it. And so, for thousands of years, people had to guess. And it is striking how often, across very different cultures and ages, they reached for the same idea, that in sleep the mind goes somewhere, that the self, freed from the still body, travels. Many traditions held that dreams were journeys the soul took while the body lay resting, or messages arriving from somewhere beyond the sleeper, glimpses of things not yet come to pass. People have always sensed, without any way to prove it, that sleep is not simply an absence, that something happens to us in the night, that we go down into the dark and come back somehow changed, carrying something we did not have before. They were wrong about the details, about souls and travels and prophecy, but about the deepest thing they were strangely, beautifully right. Something does happen to you in the night. You do go down into the dark and come back changed. It just turns out that the journey is taken not by a soul leaving the body at all, but by the brain, staying exactly where it is, and quietly doing the most important work of your life. For most of that history, people simply assumed that whatever the mind was doing, it must mostly stop when the body went still. Sleep looked like a small rehearsal for death. The face goes slack. The breathing slows and deepens. The person stops answering the world. It seemed obvious that the lights were just going out up there, that the brain at rest was a brain switched off, idling, waiting for morning to start working again. This was not a foolish idea. It is exactly what resting looks like from the outside. It just happens to be wrong. The trouble was that nobody had any way to check. To know what the brain does in the dark, you would need some way to listen to it without opening it, to catch whatever faint signal it gives off through the bone of the skull and the skin of the scalp. And the brain is a very quiet instrument. The electricity it makes, all those billions of cells whispering to each other at once, adds up to something almost impossibly small by the time it reaches the surface of the head. Millionths of a volt. Smeared and muffled by everything in between. For a long time, it seemed hopeless. You might as well try to hear a single quiet conversation at the bottom of the ocean by pressing your ear to the surface of the sea. And yet, there were hints, scattered all through ordinary life, that the resting mind was not nearly as idle as it looked. Everyone knew the experience of lying down to sleep and finding the mind suddenly louder, not quieter, crowded with the day replaying itself, with worries and old conversations and memories arriving out of nowhere. Everyone knew that a problem you could not solve at your desk would sometimes answer itself overnight. The solution simply waiting for you in the morning, as though someone had worked on it while you slept. Everyone had woken from dreams so vivid, so complete, so full of feeling, that it was hard to believe the mind had been resting at all. The clues were everywhere. We just had no way to follow them inside. Think, too, about how odd our ignorance was. You will spend something close to a third of your whole life asleep. If you live to be 90, that is 30 years. 3 full decades spent lying in the dark. Gone from the waking world, it is, by a wide margin, the single thing you will do most in your entire life. More than working, more than eating, more than talking with the people you love. And for almost all of human history, we had not the faintest idea what any of it was for, or what was happening to us while we were down there. The most universal of all human experiences was also the most completely unexplored. We simply went under each night and came back each morning, and somehow never thought to ask. What was missing was an instrument, a way to turn the silent electrical life of the brain into something you could actually see. A line moving across a page, a signal you could read. And the man who finally built it was not really trying to study sleep, or rest, or memory at all. He was chasing something far stranger. He was trying to find the physical trace of one mind reaching another across empty space. His name was Hans Berger. And in the early years of the 20th century, he was a psychiatrist at the university in the German town of Jena. A serious, private, almost painfully shy man who kept his deepest ambitions to himself. Years before, as a young man doing his military service, something had happened to him that he could never quite let go of. As the story is usually told, he was riding with an artillery unit when his horse suddenly reared and threw him directly into the path of a heavy gun carriage, which stopped just short of crushing him. He was badly shaken but unhurt. And that same evening, many miles away, his sister was seized by such a powerful and inexplicable feeling that something terrible had happened to him, that she begged their father to send a telegram to make sure he was still alive. Berger had never received a telegram from his family before, and here was one arriving on the very day he had nearly died. Sent because of a sister who could not possibly have known. To him, it felt like proof of something, some force, some energy, leaping from his terrified mind to hers across all that distance. He became quietly, lifelong obsessed with the idea that the mind must give off some kind of physical signal, and he decided he would be the one to measure it. He would find the energy of thought itself. It was, by any reasonable judgment, a doomed quest. He never found a shred of evidence that one brain can signal another. But in chasing that ghost, Berger did something no one before him had managed: to hunt for the energy of the mind. He first had to learn to detect the faint electricity of the brain. And over years of patient, secretive work, mostly in a small laboratory he kept half hidden from his colleagues, he slowly built and refined the machine that could do it. He fixed sensitive electrodes to the scalps of his subjects, fed the tiny signals through an amplifier, and let a delicate pen trace whatever it found onto a slowly turning drum of paper. On the 6th of July, in 1924, working with the help of a young patient, Hans Berger recorded a clean electrical signal from the surface of a living human head for the first time in history. The pen moved, and it did not move randomly. It traced out steady, rolling waves, rising and falling in a rhythm, like something breathing in its sleep. He was looking at the electricity of a human brain, drawn out on paper in front of him. He had built the first electroencephalogram, the EEG, the instrument that would finally let us listen at the surface of the sea. And almost at once, the waves did something that should have been impossible to ignore, because the brain turned out to be at its loudest, its rhythm strongest and clearest and most insistent. At exactly the moment Berger expected it to go quiet. And that is where our story truly begins. When Berger looked at the waves more closely, he saw they were not all the same. There were two main kinds, and they took turns. When a person lay back, closed their eyes, and let the mind go loose, the pen drew big, smooth, regular waves, rolling past at about 10 of them every second. Strong and steady and almost hypnotic to watch. Berger called this the alpha rhythm, and it became known as the Berger wave, the very first brain rhythm ever named. It is the sound, if you like, of a mind at ease. But the moment that same person opened their eyes, or was asked to do a little arithmetic in their head, or to concentrate on anything at all, the alpha waves broke apart. They shrank and scattered into something faster and smaller and choppier. A busy, low ripple he called beta. Concentrate. And the great smooth rhythm vanished. Relax. And it came rolling back. Sit with how backward that is. Berger had gone looking for the energy of thought, expecting the brain to throw out its strongest signal when it was working hardest. Instead, he found the exact reverse. The brain's grandest, most powerful, most unmistakable rhythm was the rhythm of doing nothing. The signal got louder when the thinking stopped. Bear down on a hard task, and in a real sense, the brain goes quieter at the surface. The big waves dissolving into small, busy ones. Let go. Close your eyes. Drift. And the deep, slow rhythm rises up and fills the whole recording. This is the first time we meet the current beneath the river, and it is worth slowing down for. The alpha rhythm is what appears when you stop stirring the water, while you are paddling hard, focused, churning the surface with effort. You cannot see what lies underneath. The moment you lift the paddle and let the surface go glassy and still, the deep, slow, patient movement that was there the whole time finally becomes visible. Berger had not found the energy of concentration. He had stumbled, without meaning to, onto the rhythm of release. And you can feel a small echo of this for yourself. Right now, your eyes are likely closed already. But if they are not, let them close and let your gaze go soft behind the lids. And notice how, almost at once, something in you loosens. That loosening has a signature on the page. The instant the eyes close and the visual world goes dark. The back of the brain, with nothing left to look at, floods with those big, slow alpha waves. The rhythm of a mind released from the work of watching. It is one of the reasons that simply closing your eyes feels like such a relief at the end of a long day. You are not only resting your eyes, you are letting a whole region of your brain stop straining outward and fall into its own easy rhythm. You have been doing it every night of your life, without ever knowing its name. And here is the human part of it. The part that makes Berger easy to love a little. He did not trust what he had found. He was so cautious, so afraid of being wrong and ridiculed, that he sat on the discovery for 5 whole years. 5 years of repeating the recordings, hundreds upon hundreds of them, checking and rechecking. Before he finally dared to publish in 1929, in a careful paper with the plainest possible title, On the Electroencephalogram of Man, he was right to be nervous, though for the wrong reasons. When the work finally came out, much of the scientific world did not celebrate it. They doubted it. Some were sure the waves were an artifact, a flaw in the machine, the faint twitching of scalp muscles. Anything but the real activity of the brain. It seemed too strange, too convenient, that you could read the living mind straight through the unbroken skull. For years, Berger's great discovery sat under a cloud of suspicion, while the shy man in Gina quietly kept on recording. It was only later, when one of the most respected physiologists of the age, a Nobel Prize winner named Edgar Adrian, built the same experiment in his own laboratory and watched the very same rolling waves appear, that the doubt finally lifted. The alpha rhythm was real. The brain could be heard. Berger had been right all along. He did not get to enjoy that vindication for very long, and he died in 1941, before the full scale of what he had opened up became clear. But every brain scan taken since, every sleep study ever run, Everything we are going to talk about tonight begins with that shy man and his slowly turning drum of paper, and the impossible waves that only grew stronger the more the mind let go. It is worth pausing to honor him, this anxious, secretive man, because nearly everything that came after grew out of his stubborn and lonely work. The alpha rhythm he found turned out to live in almost every healthy human head, a near universal signature of the relaxed and waking brain, as real and as reliable as a heartbeat. He had set out to catch a ghost, the energy of one mind reaching another, and he never caught it. But in failing, he handed us the very first true window into the living brain. And through that window, we have seen everything we are about to see tonight. And the strange and lovely thing is, that rhythm is almost certainly happening inside you at this moment. Your eyes are closed now, or nearly. Your mind is loosening its grip across the back of your head, over the part of the brain that handles vision. Those big, slow alpha waves are very likely rolling past right now. 8, 10, 12 of them every second. The brain's quiet signature of letting go. You cannot feel them. No one ever could, but they are there. The deep current showing itself now that your surface has gone calm. Let that settle for a moment before we go any further down. Because Berger had only shown us the resting brain of someone awake, eyes closed, drifting. Yes, but still on this side of sleep, the real darkness. True sleep, the third of your whole life that you spend somewhere far below the alpha rhythm. That was still a complete mystery, and nearly everyone still assumed that down there, at last, the brain finally did fall silent. That sleep was the genuine off switch, the place where the mind truly stopped. For almost 30 years after Berger, no one seriously questioned it. And then a tired, broke graduate student borrowed his own 8-year-old son for the night, and the whole picture came apart. The graduate student was named Eugene Azarinsky, and in 1953 he was working in the sleep laboratory of a man called Nathaniel Kleitman at the University of Chicago. Kleitman was a giant in the small and rather lonely world of sleep research, almost the only serious scientist who had given his entire life to studying it. And he was the kind of scientist who would do almost anything to understand the rhythms of the resting body, including using his own. A few years before Azarinsky arrived, in 1938, Kleitman had taken himself and a young colleague deep underground into Mammoth Cave in Kentucky, into a chamber far below the surface where no daylight could ever reach, and lived down there for 32 days. He wanted to know whether the body's daily clock, its rhythm of sleeping and waking, comes from the sun outside or from something built into us. So he cut himself off from every cue of day and night, down in the constant darkness and cool of the cave, and tracked his own sleep and his own temperature and his own slow internal tides, hunting for the clock that keeps ticking inside us whether the sun is there or not. This was the man, patient and a little obsessive, and willing to vanish into a cave for a month, in whose laboratory the secret of REM was about to be found. and Aserinsky, his student, had been handed a thankless little project. He was to watch the eyes of sleeping people and chart the slow drifting movements of the eyeballs as a person fell asleep. It was tedious, unglamorous work, done on an aging, temperamental machine that scratched its pens across long rolls of paper through the night. One night, short on willing volunteers, Aserinsky brought in a subject he could count on, his own son, Armand, who was 8 years old. He pasted the electrodes carefully around the boy's eyes and on his scalp, tucked him into the lab bed, set the long roll of paper turning, and settled in to watch the pens crawl across it through the hours. For a while, everything went as expected. The boy fell asleep. The waves slowed and deepened. The eyes drifted and then went still. And then, sometime in the depths of the night, the machine went wild. The pens tracking the eyes suddenly swung back and forth, hard and fast, scribbling furiously, as though Armand's eyes were darting all around the room, and the pens reading the brain came alive too, drawing the small, fast, busy pattern you would expect from someone wide awake and alert. By every reading on the machine, the boy had woken up and was lying there, eyes open, looking about him. Aserinsky assumed the machine had broken, or that his son was awake and quietly playing a trick. So he got up and went into the room to check, and he found Armand fast asleep, deeply, unmistakably asleep. His breathing slow, his face calm, his eyes closed. The only movement anywhere was beneath the lids, where the eyes were flicking rapidly back and forth, side to side, chasing something that was not in the room at all. Stop and picture that, because it is one of the quietly astonishing scenes in the history of science. A sleeping child, perfectly still, perfectly peaceful, and inside that small skull, a brain blazing away with the full electrical signature of wakefulness. The eyes racing as if watching a world only the sleeper could see. The body switched off, the mind switched fully, wildly on. Aserinsky and Kleitman began to look for this pattern everywhere, in adults now as well as in children, and they found it again and again. It was not a fluke. It was a regular, recurring stage of perfectly normal sleep that everybody passes through. Several times, every single night, and that no one had ever properly described. They published their findings in the journal Science in 1953. A short, a modest paper that quietly turned the entire understanding of sleep upside down. A young colleague in the lab, William Demont, would soon give the new state the name we still use today: rapid eye movement, sleep. In a word. And then they did the obvious. Beautiful thing. They began waking people up in the middle of these bursts of activity to ask what, if anything, was happening in their minds. The answer came back almost every time. Dreams. Long, vivid, story-shaped dreams, full of faces and places and feeling, the racing eyes, the blazing brain, the dreaming mind, They all belong together. Aserinsky had stumbled onto the very place where dreams are made. And here is something gentle to know as you lie there. You will dream tonight. Whether or not you remember a single moment of it, everyone does. Every night, 4 or 5 times over. Whole vivid worlds rising and dissolving in the dark. Most of them forgotten before the morning. People who are sure they never dream are almost always simply people who do not recall them. Down in your sleep tonight, you will visit places that do not exist. You will speak with people you have not seen in years. You will live through small, impossible stories that feel, while you are inside them, completely and convincingly real. And then, gently, with the coming light, nearly all of it will loosen its hold and slip away, leaving behind at most a feeling, a color, a fading sense that you have been somewhere. It happens to every human being alive. It will happen, softly, to you tonight. What slowly came into focus over the years that followed was a picture of sleep utterly unlike the flat, switched-off darkness everyone had imagined. Sleep, it turned out, has an architecture, a shape. When you drift off, you do not simply sink into a single deep stillness and stay there until dawn. You descend, in stages, down through lighter sleep into the deep. Slow, heavy sleep, where the brain's waves grow long and grand and rolling. And then, instead of staying down there, you climb back up and pass through one of these REM storms, dreaming, your eyes racing, your brain roaring, and then you sink again, up and down and up, in a long, slow rhythm that repeats roughly every 90 minutes, 4 or 5 times across a single night. So sleep is not a switch at all. It is a tide. It comes in and it goes out. In and out. All night long. And you ride it without ever knowing. Right now. The night ahead of you is already shaped like this. Already waiting for you. In an hour or two, you will sink down into the deepest, slowest sleep, the kind it is hardest to be woken from. And then, gently, you will rise back toward the surface and into your first dream. And your eyes, behind their closed lids, will quietly begin to move. It is worth lingering for a moment on the deep part of that tide. The heavy, slow sleep you fall into first, because it is its own kind of marvel. As you sink down out of light sleep, the brain's waves grow slower and slower and larger, until they are rolling through the whole brain in great synchronized swells. Tens of thousands of neurons going quiet and then firing together. Over and over, in the slowest, grandest rhythm the brain ever makes. This is the deepest letting go of all. It is the sleep that is hardest to be woken from. The sleep a small child falls into so completely that you can lift them from the car and carry them all the way to their bed without their ever stirring. And, on the way down, the brain does something quietly protective. It fires off brief. Fast little flurries of activity called spindles. Small bursts that seem to act like a gate, softly closing the sleeping mind off from the sounds of the world. Holding the door shut so the deep work inside can go on undisturbed. The sleeping brain is not simply switched off and helpless. It is actively guarding its own rest, keeping watch over the very stillness it needs. There is one more piece to the REM picture that is so strange it almost sounds invented. And yet it is plainly, measurably true. During these dreaming storms, while your brain is as active as it is when you are wide awake, your body is paralyzed. Almost every muscle below the neck is switched off, held in a kind of soft lock, unable to move. Your brain is generating a whole vivid world. Running, falling, flying, speaking, and your body lies there utterly still, going nowhere at all, because it has been gently and deliberately disconnected. Only a few things are spared. The eyes, which dart and chase, the heart, which speeds and slows, and the breath, which turns ragged and uneven, the way it does when something is really happening to you. Why would the body do such a thing? The most likely answer is also the most tender. The paralysis is there to protect you, and to protect the dream. If your body were free to act out everything the dreaming brain commanded, you would leap from the bed. You would crash into walls. You would throw punches at people who were not there. So the brain, before it builds its nightly world, quietly switches off the body's controls, sets the muscles softly aside, and only then lets the dream begin. You are allowed to fly precisely because you have been made unable to move. Let that sink in for a moment. The strange gentleness of it. Tonight, when you slip down into your dreams, your body will be held softly still, kept safe, going nowhere at all, while your mind runs free through whatever worlds it cares to build. You are guarded even as you wander. You are anchored even as you fly. This is the current showing its other face. Berger's alpha rhythm was the calm, even, glassy part of the river, the deep, steady flow you see when the surface goes still. REM is what happens where the water churns. Down in the depths of sleep there are eddies and whirlpools, places where the current turns back on itself and roars. And it is out of those churning places that the strangest things rise up to the surface as dreams. We still do not fully agree on what dreams are for. People have argued about it for as long as there have been people. And the honest answer tonight is that we are still working it out. But we know now, beyond any doubt at all, that they pour out of a brain that is anything but resting. It is a humbling thing. How late we came to all of this. By the time Aserinsky sat watching his son's eyes race beneath their lids, human beings had already split the atom. Within months of his little paper, 2 scientists would work out the structure of DNA, the spiral code of life itself. And yet, until that night in Chicago, we knew almost nothing about the state in which every human being spends a full third of their existence. Some scientists came to call REM a third state of being, standing alongside waking and ordinary sleep, a way of existing as basic as the other two, and one we had simply never noticed was there. Tonight, 4 or 5 times over, you will enter that third state. You will dream things you will have mostly forgotten by morning, while your body lies still and safe, and your brain burns as bright as noon. And it changes how you might feel about the hours ahead. Knowing this, the sleep you are sinking toward is not an absence, not a blank gap between today and tomorrow that you simply have to get through. It is a place you go, a third of your life, lived in a country with its own weather and its own rules, that you visit faithfully every night and can almost never carry back. You are not about to stop existing for a while. You are about to go somewhere. But Berger and Asarinsky had really only deepened the mystery. And not solved it. They had proved, past all doubt, that the brain at rest and the brain asleep are loud, busy, alive. What they still could not say was why. What was all that activity actually doing down there? The pens could show you the rhythm of the brain. They could not show you its work. To answer that, science would have to wait another 40 years. For a machine that could look inside a living head and see not just the beat of the brain, but the place. And when that machine finally arrived, it revealed something stranger than alpha waves, stranger even than dreams. It revealed that doing nothing has an address. The machine that finally changed everything was the brain scanner, the one that reads not the electricity of the brain, but its blood. When a patch of brain works a little harder, it calls for a little more blood, a little more oxygen, and a scanner called the functional MRI can watch that happen, lighting up the regions that are busy from one second to the next. For the first time, you could see not just the rhythm of the brain, but the geography of it. You could watch the thinking move from place to place. It is an astonishing thing. When you stop to picture it, a person lies down inside a great humming magnet, perfectly still, and a few feet away, a screen fills with the shifting glow of their living thoughts, brightening here as they picture a face, there as they work out a sum, the private interior of a mind made visible at last. From the outside, without a single cut, the locked room that Berger had only been able to press his ear against, we could now, in a real sense, look into. And once you can look into a thing, you slowly begin to notice what is happening inside it, even when nothing at all is supposed to be happening. And the scientists who built their careers on this machine did it the sensible way, the way Berger's successors had always done it. You give a person a task. You watch which parts of the brain light up. And to be sure you are seeing the task and nothing else. You subtract away the resting state underneath. Rest was the control, the blank page, the zero you measured everything against. Once again, the most interesting thing in the room was being thrown out as nothing. The first crack came in 1995 from a graduate student named Bharat Biswal at the Medical College of Wisconsin. He noticed that even when a person was lying in the scanner, doing absolutely nothing, certain far apart regions of the brain were quietly rising and falling in their activity together, in time with one another, as if they were talking. He called it resting state connectivity. Most people shrugged. It looked like noise. The same old story. The grey snow between channels. But it was the first hint that the resting brain was not a blank page at all. It was a page covered in writing no one had learned to read. The man who learned to read it was a neurologist named Marcus Reichel at Washington University in St. Septa, Louis. And what caught his attention was a small, nagging, persistent thing. He kept noticing that a particular set of regions, always the same ones, went quiet the instant a person started a task, any task, and lit back up the moment the task ended. It did not seem to matter what the task was. Reading, counting, looking, remembering. It was always these same regions that switched off when the work began and switched back on when it stopped. He found it so curious that he started collecting the scans in a folder, with a half-joking label scrawled on it, the medial mystery parietal area. And then Reichel did the thing that changes science. He turned the question inside out. Everyone else was asking, what makes these regions turn on? Reichel asked the opposite. What if they never turn on? Because they are never off? What if these regions are running constantly, doing something important all the time, and a task does not switch them on at all? A task switches them off. The mystery was not why the brain lit up when you concentrated. It was why a part of it went dark. In 2001, Reichel and his colleagues gave this idea a name in a paper that quietly reshaped neuroscience, called a default mode of brain function. The set of regions became known as the default mode network. And the meaning of the name is the whole point. This is the mode the brain falls back into by default. The thing it does when it is not being asked to do anything else. Stop giving the brain a job. And it does not idle. It returns, immediately and automatically, to its own private work. The work it would rather be doing all along. It is worth saying how nearly this was missed, and how much of it came down to one person being willing to take seriously a thing everyone else found boring. The default mode network had been hiding in plain sight inside thousands of brain scans for years. Every researcher running every experiment had it right there in their data. This same set of regions quietly lighting up in the gaps between tasks. They all saw it. They simply did not believe it meant anything. Because they were so certain that rest was nothing, that they trained themselves not to look. It took someone with the patience to keep a folder of curiosities, and the nerve to suggest that the most ignored part of every experiment might be the most important, to turn the oversight into a discovery. Some of the greatest findings in science are not new things appearing. They are old things, finally seen. The network sits mostly along the midline of the brain, the deep middle line that runs front to back, a region just behind your forehead, the medial prefrontal cortex, a region deep in the back middle of the brain, the posterior cingulate and the precuneus, a few others, all linked, all humming together. And here is the fact that should stop you for a moment. Remember that the brain is only about 2% of your body weight, but burns around 20% of your energy. Remember that a hard, demanding task adds less than 5% to that bill. Put those together and you arrive at something staggering. The overwhelming majority of your brain's enormous energy budget is spent not on tasks, not on the outside world, not on anything you would call thinking on purpose. It is spent on this constant, churning, internal background activity. This default mode, running underneath everything, all the time. 20 watts does not sound like very much. The power of a single dim bulb. And yet for the body, it is an enormous, almost extravagant demand. Your brain is a small organ, only about 3 pounds of you. And it is greedy, far out of all proportion to its size, burning through 1/5 of everything you eat just to keep itself running. In a small child, it is hungrier still, taking a huge share of all the energy the little body can gather, which is part of why young children need so much sleep and tire so suddenly and so completely. This is not the energy budget of an organ that mostly switches off and waits for something to do. It is the budget of something that is always working, even and especially when it appears to be doing nothing at all. Rachel reached for a word from a completely different science to capture it. Astronomers had discovered, by then, that almost all of the energy in the universe is a kind we cannot see and barely understand. A vast, invisible presence they named dark energy, which fills the cosmos and drives its expansion while staying completely hidden from view. Rachel looked at the brain's huge, hidden, ceaseless background activity, the part no task ever revealed, the part everyone had been subtracting away for decades. And he called it the same thing, the brain's dark energy, the enormous, invisible majority of what your mind is doing, that you never once notice. And this default network does not run alone. It has a kind of opposite, another set of regions that wakes up at precisely the moments the default network falls quiet. The system that turns your attention outward, onto a task, onto the world in front of you. The two trade places, back and forth, all day long. Focus hard on something out there, and the outward network rises, while the inward, default one sinks. Let go. Drift. Turn inward, and they switch again. It is a seesaw, a constant gentle tipping between attention to the world and attention to yourself, between doing and being. And the brain rocks back and forth across it from moment to moment, as naturally as you breathe in and breathe out without ever deciding to. And what is happening to you now, as you settle towards sleep, is that the seesaw is tipping, slowly and for the whole long night, all the way over toward the inward side. The world is being set down, and soon even the inward self will be set down too. And now, the river beneath us comes fully into view. All your life, you have thought of your thoughts as the small, bright things you do on purpose. The decisions, the focusing, the working through. But those are only the ripples your paddle makes on the surface of the water. They are real, but they are tiny. Less than 5% of the whole. Underneath them, all the time, runs the deep current, the dark energy, the default mode, carrying 95% of the flow. You spend your entire waking life noticing the ripples and calling them your mind, while the river does the real moving in the dark below. And the moment you stop paddling, the moment you lie down and let go, you do not turn the river off. You simply stop disturbing it. You let it run. So as you lie here now, not concentrating on anything, having set the day's tasks down at last, that network is not resting. It is wide awake. It is doing what it always does the instant you leave it alone. Which brings us to the strangest and most personal question of the whole night. What is it doing? What is the brain so endlessly, expensively busy with? The moment you finally stop asking anything of it, when scientists went looking for the answer, what they found was, in a sensor. The most intimate thing of all, they found you. Because when researchers studied what lights up the default mode network, they found it was not random at all. It switches into high gear during a very particular handful of mental activities. Remembering your own past, the first kiss, the old house, the embarrassing thing you said years ago, imagining your future, tomorrow's meeting, next year, the conversation you have not had yet, picturing yourself somewhere you are not, thinking about other people, what they want, what they feel, what they think of you, and underneath all of it, the quiet, continuous narration that runs through your day. The sense of being a single person with a story, moving through time. In other words, the default mode network is, in large part, the machinery of being you. It is where the self is assembled and maintained. It takes yesterday and stitches it to today and to an imagined tomorrow. And out of that stitching, it makes the feeling of being one continuous person rather than a string of disconnected moments. It rehearses conversations you are dreading. It replays conversations you have already had. It runs little simulations of your life, forward and backward, testing the future and revisiting the past. When you stop doing anything, your brain returns, by default, to the enormous task of being someone with a history and a name and people they love. And it is worth pausing on what an astonishing power this really is. This ability to leave the present moment and travel in your own mind. No other creature we know of can do it quite the way we can sit fully in the here and now and yet stand. In imagination, in last spring, or 10 years from now, or a future that may never arrive at all. It is this same machinery, this same wandering, inward turning network that lets a person plant a field whose harvest is months away. save for a child not yet born. Keep a promise made to someone long gone. Feel their way into how a stranger might be hurting. Or dream up a thing that has never existed. The drifting mind. The one we are so quick to scold for not paying attention is the very engine of foresight and memory and kindness and invention in a real sense. Almost everything human beings have ever built was built first in the quiet wandering of a mind that had, for a moment, stopped attending to the world right in front of it. And this is what mind wandering actually is. We talk about the mind wandering as if it drifts off into nowhere. But it does not go to nowhere. It goes inward. And it goes time traveling. The moment your attention lets go of the room around you, you find yourself somewhere else entirely. In an old memory, in tomorrow's worry, in a daydream, in an argument from years ago, replayed for the 100th time, in a conversation that has not happened and may never happen at all. That drift, that constant slipping away from the present into your own inner world, is simply the default network doing its work. The current carrying you off the moment you stop paddling against it. How much of your life does this take up? In 2010, two psychologists at Harvard, Matthew Killingsworth and Daniel Gilbert, set out to measure it in the most direct way anyone ever had. They built a small app for the iPhone, and at random moments through the day, it would chime and ask the person 3 simple questions. What are you doing right now? What are you thinking about? And how do you feel? Over 2,000 people took part, from every walk of life, aged from 18 to 88. And the app gathered something like 250,000 little snapshots of human minds caught in the act of living. The result was remarkable. People were thinking about something other than what they were actually doing nearly half of the time, about 47% of their waking hours. Their minds were somewhere other than the present moment. Nearly half of your waking life. You are not really here. You are away. In the past, or the future, or some imagined elsewhere. Carried off by the current while your body goes through the motions of the day. The two researchers found something else too, and it became the famous line of their study. They found that when people's minds wandered, they tended to report being a little less happy than when they were absorbed in what they were doing. Even when the mind had wandered toward pleasant things. A wandering mind, they wrote, is an unhappy mind. And that finding has worried a lot of people ever since. But it deserves a gentler light than it usually gets. Especially here, tonight. Because what they were largely measuring was the restless wandering of a busy day. The mind slipping away from the task at hand and circling, again and again, around the same worries, the same unfinished business, the same small frets. That kind of wandering, the kind that snags and pulls and will not settle, can wear a person down. But the drift itself, the simple capacity of the mind to leave the present and go elsewhere, is not the enemy. It is one of the most extraordinary things about being human. The very same wandering mind is the source of every daydream you have ever loved, every plan you have ever made. every idea that arrived while you were doing something else. Every moment, you rehearsed a hard conversation until you were ready to have it. The mind that can wander is the mind that can imagine a future and prepare for it, that can understand other people by stepping into their shoes, that can create anything at all. The unhappiness, when it comes, does not really come from the wandering. It comes from wandering and then fighting it, grabbing at it, judging yourself for it, getting tangled in the same anxious loop and pulling it tighter. You may know that loop from your own evenings. The way the mind, the very moment the lights go out and there is nothing left to do, suddenly fills with everything unfinished. Every worry and replay and tomorrow, that is not a flaw in you. And it is not a sign that anything is wrong. It is simply the default network, finally handed the quiet it had been waiting for all day, switching on the only way it knows how. And the trick, if there is one at all, is not to fight it or scold it, which only stirs the water more. The trick is to let the thoughts arrive and let them go, and climb aboard, not a single one of them. And tonight you are doing something altogether different and much kinder. You are letting the mind drift without grabbing at it. You are letting the current carry your thoughts wherever they go, and simply watching them float past, and reaching for none of them. That, it turns out, is the gentlest form the wandering ever takes. And it happens to be the very doorway through which sleep arrives. There is a deep relief in this that is easy to miss. To be a self, all day, every day, is a kind of beautiful labor, the constant low narration, the comparing and the remembering and the rehearsing, the holding together of a whole person with a past and a future and 100 small concerns. It is work, and it never quite stops while you are awake. And sleep, real sleep, offers the one thing the waking mind can never give you: a rest from being you. For a few hours, the great effort of selfhood is set down. The narrator falls quiet, and you are released. Briefly, from the lovely and tiring task of being someone in particular. You will not remember the rest, but you will feel it in the morning, as a kind of lightness. The way you feel after finally setting down something heavy you had been carrying so long you had forgotten it was heavy at all. There is one more thing worth knowing about all this, and it is a quiet consolation. The same network that wanders, that drifts and frets and time travels, is the very thing that holds your whole self together. The continuous you, with a past and a future and a name, is not free. It has a cost, paid in energy, around the clock. In that ceaseless background hum, carrying a self is genuinely expensive work. And that may be part of why, to truly rest, the brain has to do something more radical than simply slow down. Now and then, every single night, it has to set the self down completely, loosen the grip of that whole network, and let go even of the work of being you, which is exactly what the deepest sleep does. And it is in that letting go that nightly laying down of the self, that the real work of the night finally begins. All day long, you take in far more than you could ever properly store. Faces, words, rooms, feelings, the route you walked, the thing someone said. 100 small moments arriving faster than they can be filed. And the brain has a clever solution for this. Deep in the middle of your head, on each side, sits a small curved structure named the hippocampus, after the Greek word for seahorse, which is roughly its shape. The hippocampus works as a fast, temporary holding store, a kind of scratch pad. It grabs the day's experiences quickly and loosely, holding them just long enough to get through the day. But it cannot keep them for good. It is built for speed, not for permanence. The permanent storage lies elsewhere, spread out across the vast, wrinkled outer surface of the brain. The cortex, where long-term memories are woven into the larger fabric of everything you already know. And the great problem of memory is how an experience gets from the fast, fragile scratch pad of the hippocampus into the slow, durable, lasting store of the cortex. How does a fleeting moment become a memory you will still have in 40 years? The answer, it turns out, is sleep. That transfer, that careful copying of the day from the temporary store to the permanent one, happens mostly in the deep, slow waves of the night, while you lie there knowing nothing about it. Picture the strangeness of the arrangement. A tiny curl of tissue down in the middle of your head, roughly the size of your little finger. The seahorse catches the whole rush of your day, every face and word and turning, and holds it all briefly, loosely, the way you might hold water in your two cupped hands. And then, through the night, hand by careful hand, it passes all of it outward, into the vast folded mountain range of the cortex, where there is room enough to keep it. Room enough for a whole lifetime of days. The small, fast catcher and the great, slow keeper, working together through the dark to move a single day from the one into the other. That is a large part of what your sleep is quietly for. This may be part of why the very young sleep so much. A newborn spends most of its day asleep, and a huge share of that sleep down in the blazing, dreaming REM state. Far more of it than any grown adult. A brain that is busy building itself up from almost nothing, wiring a whole new world together for the very first time. Seems to need the night even more than a finished brain does. We come into this life sleeping, almost as though the dark were the place where we are first quietly put together. Here is how it seems to work. And it is one of the loveliest things the brain does. During the deepest stage of sleep, the slow, heavy sleep you sink into early in the night, the hippocampus begins to produce brief, sudden, extremely fast bursts of electrical activity, called sharp wave ripples. They flash by in a fraction of a second, and during each one of these ripples, something extraordinary happens. The very same neurons that fired while you were having an experience during the day fire again. in the very same order, but faster, compressed. The whole event squeezed into a tiny, rushing instant. The brain is replaying the day, taking the moments you lived through and running them again. At high speed, in the dark. We know this in remarkable detail because we can watch it happen in animals. And as it runs a particular path, a particular sequence of cells fires, one after another, mapping the route through space. Then let the rat sleep. And during its sharp wave ripples, those very same cells fire again, in the very same sequence. Sped up, the rat is running the maze again in its sleep, tracing the path over and over in fast forward. Long after the maze is gone, each replay strengthens the trace, wears the pathway a little deeper, and helps copy it from the temporary store into the lasting one. Let that picture stay with you for a moment, because it is genuinely tender. A small animal, asleep in the dark, its body perfectly still, dreaming its way back through the day it just lived, running the same paths again and again so that it will know them tomorrow. We have watched this happen, cell by cell, on our instruments, the little map of the maze lighting up again in the sleeping brain. And there is every reason to think that something very much like it is happening in you. Every single night, with the paths you walked today, and the things you learned, and the moments that mattered to you. All of it replayed in the quiet and gently pressed into the person you will be when you wake. And the replay is not happening alone or at random. It is exquisitely coordinated. The sharp wave ripples of the hippocampus fire in time with the great slow waves rolling across the cortex and with brief spindles of activity. The three of them locking together in a precise rhythm that opens little windows. Again and again through the night, during which a memory can be passed along and pressed into permanence. It is, in the most literal sense, a conversation between the part of the brain that caught the day and the part of the brain that will keep it, conducted entirely while you sleep, in a language of waves and ripples you will never hear. So a memory is not saved at the moment it happens. It is caught, loosely, by day, and then carried over and laid down for good, by night. And, in the carrying, the brain sorts. It does not keep everything. It strengthens what seems to matter and lets the rest gently fade, deciding, in the dark, what you will get to keep and what will quietly dissolve. The night is not just storing your day. It is choosing your past. This is the current laying down the riverbed. All day, the water carries a load of loose sediment, the fine silt of everything that happened to you, suspended and drifting and not yet settled anywhere. And in the stillness of the night, the current slows just enough to let that sediment fall, grain by grain, and settle into solid ground. The fleeting becomes the permanent. The passing day becomes the bed the river will run over tomorrow. And each replay, each time the water traces the day's path again, wears the channel a little deeper, until what was once just a ripple on the surface has become part of the lasting shape of the land. But the night does not only keep, it also clears. And this turns out to be just as important, all through the day. As you learn and notice and feel and experience, the connections between your neurons grow stronger and more numerous, sprouting and thickening hour by hour, until by evening, the brain is dense with new links, crowded, a little saturated, the signal harder and harder to pick out from the rising noise. If this only ever grew, the brain would soon be overwhelmed. Every connection clamoring at once. So in the deepest sleep, the brain does the opposite of strengthening. It steps back and scales the whole thing down, gently weakening the connections across the board, trimming away the small and unimportant ones so that the few that truly matter stand out clear and strong again the next morning. It is like a painter stepping back from a canvas they have overworked and lifting away the clutter until the real picture finally shows through. The night both writes and erases. It keeps what matters and lets the rest quietly dissolve. And you wake with a brain that is not only fuller than it was the night before, but cleaner, calmer, with room in it once again. This is why, when you cannot solve a problem at night, the answer is so often waiting for you in the morning. It is why a skill you practiced clumsily yesterday feels a little smoother today. Why the piano passage your fingers stumbled over is somehow easier after a night's sleep. Why the advice to sleep on it is some of the oldest and truest advice there is. You did sleep on it, and while you slept, the brain replayed it, sorted it, strengthened it, and quietly worked it through. Some scientists think the strange shimmer of our dreams may be partly the surface glimmer of all this replay, the day's fragments being shuffled and recombined. Though, here too, the honest answer is that we are still working it out. It is no accident, by the way, that you forget almost all of your dreams within moments of waking. During REM sleep, the brain runs low on some of the very chemicals it needs to lay down new memories. So, the dreams, however vivid and complete and important they feel while you are inside them, are written in disappearing ink, already fading even as you rise toward waking. The forgetting seems to be part of the design. The night replays your real day in order to keep it, and lets the strange, private theater of your dreams evaporate by morning, and somehow knows the difference between the two. But the deep work itself, the sorting and the keeping, of that there is no longer much doubt. Tonight, the things that happen to you today, a face, a sentence, a small kindness, a feeling you could not name, will be replayed in the dark, sped up and sorted, and some of them made permanent. You will not feel any of it. You will simply wake in the morning and know things you did not fully know the night before. And there is reason to think the night does something tender with our feelings, too, and not only with our facts. Across a night of dreaming, the sharp emotional charge of the day seems to soften. Just a little. The memory of what happened is carefully kept. But the raw sting of it the heat of the embarrassment, the cold edge of the worry, is quietly turned down so that you can recall the event tomorrow without being pierced by it all over again. Some researchers have called this a kind of overnight therapy. The dreaming brain working through the day's emotions in the safety of sleep. Taking the things that troubled you and gently filing them somewhere they can no longer hurt so sharply. It is part of why the world so often looks more bearable by morning. Why a grief or a fear that felt unmanageable at midnight has softened, bedaft, into something you find you can carry after all. You did not only sleep, you were, in a quiet way, looked after. And yet the night does even more than file the day away. There is one more layer, deeper than memory, discovered only a handful of years ago. And it is the layer where the river stops being a metaphor and becomes a plain and astonishing fact. Because while the sleeping brain is busy sorting your memories, it is also in the dark, doing something no one even suspected until recently. It is washing itself clean. Think for a moment about what the brain is. Physically, it is the most energy-hungry organ in the body, running every second of every day, never once switching off across an entire lifetime. And like any machine that burns fuel, it produces waste, a constant trickle of molecular debris, the leftover junk of all that activity, building up in the narrow spaces between its cells. Among that debris is a sticky protein called beta amyloid. In the rest of your body, there is a whole network of vessels, the lymphatic system, whose job is to carry such waste away. But the brain, strangely, has no lymphatic vessels of its own, and so for a very long time, one of the most basic questions you could ask went almost completely unanswered. How does the brain take out its trash? It is a strange gap to have gone unfilled for so long. We had mapped the brain's regions and its rhythms and its networks in extraordinary detail. And yet this most basic, almost janitorial question, where does the rubbish actually go, had no good answer at all. The old assumption was simply that each cell must somehow break down and recycle its own waste on the spot, quietly, with no help from any larger system. The truth, when it finally arrived, turned out to be far stranger and far more beautiful than that. The answer began to come into view in 2012 from a laboratory at the University of Rochester, led by a scientist named Mike Niedergor, working with a colleague named Jeffrey Iliff. They found a hidden plumbing system that no one had properly seen before. The brain floats in a clear fluid called cerebrospinal fluid. And they discovered that this fluid does not just sit there, cushioning the brain. It flows. It runs inward along the outsides of the blood vessels that dive down into the brain, passes through special channels on the brain's support cells, washes through the tissue itself, mixes with the fluid in the narrow spaces between the neurons, and carries the waste back out and away. They named this newly found system the glymphatic system, a blend of the glia, the support cells that make it work, and the lymphatic system it quietly stands in for. The brain, it turned out, had a washing system all along. We had simply never seen it run. It helps to remember that your brain does not sit dry inside your skull. It floats, suspended in a clear bath of this cerebrospinal fluid, cushioned and held by it, with around a cupful of the stuff surrounding and even running through the brain at any given moment. Slowly made and slowly renewed, several times over, across a single day. What Nedergaard and her colleagues had found was that this quiet bath was not still at all. It moved. It had somewhere to go, and a job to do. And it did most of that job in the dark. And then, in 2013, came the finding that ties this whole night together. One of Nedergaard's researchers, Lulu Xie, spent the better part of 2 years on a single painstaking task. She trained mice to relax and to fall asleep while resting under a powerful microscope, so that she could watch directly what happened to this washing system as a brain passed from waking into sleep. And what she saw was breathtaking. As the mice fell asleep, the spaces between their brain cells opened up. The narrow gaps widened, expanding by something like 60%. And the fluid that had only trickled through during waking now rushed through freely, flooding the newly opened channels. The brain was physically making room, and as it did, the waste, including that sticky amyloid, was cleared away roughly twice as fast as it had been during waking. Nedergaard described what they were seeing in the simplest possible terms. It was, she said, like a dishwasher, switching on for the night. And there may be a quiet beauty hidden here, in the way the two great labors of the night turn out to be connected. The slow, rolling waves of deep sleep. The same grand swells that help carry your memories across into permanence appear also to help drive this washing. The great synchronized pulses of the sleeping brain pushing the fluid through the widened spaces like a slow tide drawn along by the moon. The deep waves that file away your day and the deep waves that wash your brain clean may be, in part, the very same waves, the keeping and the clearing, woven together into a single rhythm, rolling through your head all night long. One tide doing two kinds of mercy at once. Why can the brain not simply do this while you are awake? The leading explanation is beautifully simple. The deep cleaning and the everyday business of thinking seem to compete for the same space and the same resources. You cannot fully run the wash while every room is still in use. The narrow spaces cannot open wide for the flood of fluid, while the brain is crowded with the work of being awake and aware and engaged with the world. So the deep cleaning waits. It waits for the building to empty. It waits for you to stop, to lie down, to let go of the day and surrender the self. Sleep is not the quiet pause around the cleaning. Sleep is the thing that lets the cleaning happen at all. And here the river finishes its long journey from figure of speech to literal truth. All night, I have been calling the deep activity of your resting mind a current beneath the calm surface. A metaphor to help the strangeness go down easy. But at this deepest layer, it stops being a metaphor. There really is a tide inside your skull. a slow, real river of fluid that rises only when you let go, that runs in through the widened spaces the moment you surrender the day, and carries the debris of your thinking out toward the edges and away. When you finally stop thinking, a real river begins to flow. The thing you have been doing this whole time, easing towards sleep, loosening your grip on the day, is opening the floodgates. You are letting the river rise. There is a tender weight to all of this, and it is worth holding gently. That sticky amyloid the night washes away is the same protein that, when it builds up and is not cleared, gathers into the plaques found in the brains of people with Alzheimer's disease. And this is one of the quiet reasons that a life of good, deep, regular sleep seems to help protect the mind across the long span of the years. Not because sleep is a cure for anything, and not as something to lie awake worrying about, but as a simple and hopeful truth. Every night you sleep well, you give the river its chance to run, and it carries a little more of the debris away, and keeps the place where you live clean enough to go on being yourself. I should say, too, that this picture is still being worked out, still argued over and refined by careful scientists. The way every new and important idea always is. But the heart of it is hard to doubt now. Rest is not laziness. Rest is maintenance. Rest is the brain caring for itself in the only way it can. And there is something steadying in this, rather than something to be afraid of. It means that one of the kindest and most quietly powerful things you can do for the mind you will have in 30 or 40 years is also one of the simplest. And you are doing it right now. Not striving, not worrying, not trying to fix anything at all, just lying down in the dark and letting the night do what the night has always done. Every good night's sleep is a small act of care for a future self you have not met yet. A gift sent gently forward in time, paid in the only currency the brain will ever accept, which is rest. And maybe that is the deepest answer to the question we started with tonight. You cannot be fully awake and fully clean at the same time. You cannot carry the whole weight of the self and also set it down to be washed. And so, every single night, your brain asks you to step aside, to stop steering, to loosen your grip on the day and on the very feeling of being you, so that the slow work of sorting and keeping and clearing and cleaning can finally begin. It is not a weakness, this need to let go. It is the price and the gift of being a living mind. The letting go is the whole point, and you are doing it right now, beautifully, without having to try at all. Once you understand all of this, a great many ordinary things start to make a quiet kind of sense. Take that old experience of going to bed stuck on a problem and waking with the answer already there, clear and obvious, as if it had assembled itself overnight. For a long time that felt almost magical. Now we can see what is happening. While you slept, the brain was replaying the pieces, sorting them, loosening the rigid daytime grip in which you had been holding them. letting them drift and recombine in new arrangements. The waking mind was too busy and too fixed to try. You did not solve the problem despite sleeping. You solved it because you slept. The answer was the work of the river, done in the dark, and simply handed to you in the morning. There are famous stories of this, of discoveries and inventions and melodies that are said to have arrived in dreams or in the soft moments just after waking. The scientist who reportedly saw the shape of a molecule in a half-dream. The songwriter who woke with a finished tune in their head. Some of these tales have surely grown taller in the retelling, the way good stories do. And it is wise to hold them lightly. But the everyday version of it is real, and you have lived it yourself. The name that would not come at dinner. Arriving unbidden the next morning in the shower. The decision that felt impossibly tangled at midnight. Somehow simple and clear by breakfast. The new idea that seemed to come from nowhere, when in truth it came from the night. From a mind that had been quietly turning things over while you slept. Free for once of the narrow, anxious grip of the waking day. It is the same with learning anything at all. The language you are studying. The instrument you are practicing. The skill your hands are slowly acquiring. You can practice all day, but a great deal of the actual improvement, the part where the new pattern settles in and becomes yours, happens that night, while you sleep, as the day's clumsy attempts are replayed and consolidated and worn into a smoother path. This is why a night of good sleep after learning something matters so much. And why pulling an all-nighter to cram is such a poor bargain. You can pour information into the temporary store all night long, but if you never sleep, the river never runs, and almost none of it is carried over into the lasting one. The brain that does not rest does not keep. And if you ever doubt how essential all this hidden night work must be, consider this. Every animal that has ever been carefully studied, from us, to dogs and cats, to birds, to fish, all the way down to creatures with almost no brain to speak of. A fruit fly, a worm, a tiny jellyfish drifting in the warm sea. Every single one of them sleeps, or does something so like sleep that we struggle to tell the difference. Sleep is ancient, far older than humans, far older than dreams, woven into living things almost from the very beginning. And it is, on the face of it, a dangerous thing to do. To lie there for hours unaware, unable to flee or feed or stand guard. Across hundreds of millions of years, evolution had every reason to find a way to do away with such a costly, defenseless state, and it never did. It never found a way around the night, which tells you, more plainly than any single experiment ever could, that whatever is being done in there while we sleep, the sorting and the keeping and the clearing and the cleaning, is not a luxury, and not a weakness, and not optional. It is one of the deepest necessities of being alive. You can feel the lack of it directly. On any morning after a poor night, the fog, the short fuse, the way names and words sit just out of reach. the world somehow flatter and harder than it should be. That heaviness is not a weakness or a failing. It is simply the plain fact of a brain whose river did not fully run, whose day was not properly filed, whose quiet halls were not swept. The body is telling you, in the only language it has, that some of the night's work was left undone, and asking, as gently as it knows how, for the rest it did not get. And it is worth saying, gently, what happens when we do not give the mind enough of this? We live. Now, in a world almost perfectly designed to keep the surface of the river churning, there is always another thing to look at, another feed to scroll, another bright rectangle of input waiting in our pocket. The instant a quiet moment appears, the old, empty spaces of life, the bus ride, the line at the shop, the few minutes before sleep. The times when the mind used to simply drift and wander and run its default work are now so easily filled, and there is a real cost to never letting the mind go idle, to never giving the default network the open, unstructured time it needs to do its quiet sorting and stitching. Some of the restlessness so many people feel may be, in part, a mind that is never quite allowed to rest, a current never given the stillness it needs to settle, which makes what you are doing right now, lying here in the dark with nothing to look at and nowhere to be, not a small thing at all. It is the oldest and most natural medicine there is. It is worth gently reclaiming the empty moments. Then, rather than always rushing to fill them, the walk with no podcast, the bath with no phone, the few minutes spent staring out of a window, doing nothing, going nowhere. These are not wasted time. They are exactly the open, unhurried spaces in which the default network does its quiet sorting and dreaming and stitching, in which tangled problems loosen and ideas arrive unbidden, and the self quietly catches up with itself. The mind, like a field, needs its fallow ground. Some of the most important work you will ever do is the work that happens when you finally allow yourself to do nothing at all. There is even a way to befriend the wandering mind rather than fight it. And people have been practicing it for thousands of years. When you sit quietly and simply watch your thoughts come and go without chasing them, without grabbing each one and being pulled away, you are doing something the brain finds deeply restful. And studies of people who have practiced this for many years have found something striking. That very network, the default network, the restless machinery of the wandering self, grows quieter in them. They have learned, in a sense, to let the river run without throwing themselves into it. And the beautiful thing is that this is almost exactly what falling asleep asks of you too. Not to stop the thoughts, which you cannot do, but to stop holding them, to let each one drift past like a leaf on the water, and to reach for none of them. You already know how to do this. Your body has done it every night of your life. So let us come back, now, all the way back, from the laboratories and the centuries and the maze-running mice, to here, to you, lying in the dark. In this room. In this moment. Because everything we have talked about tonight is not happening to someone else. In some study. Far away. It is happening inside your own head. Right now. As you listen. As you let go. Feel, if you can, the simple weight of your body against the bed. The small warmth of the blankets. The slow rise and fall of your own breathing, which you do not have to manage or control, which is being taken care of for you. The way so much is being taken care of for you tonight, across the back of your head. Those big, slow alpha waves are very likely already rolling. The brain's quiet signature of release. Growing stronger now, the more you let the day go. Deeper in, along the midline. The default network is humming its endless background work. The dark energy of you. The 95% that runs in the dark, and the night ahead is already shaped and waiting. The long, slow tide of it, 4 or 5 times down into the depths and back up into dreaming, ready to carry you without any effort at all. Take a slow breath, if you would like to, and feel how little any of this asks of you. You do not have to remember a single thing we talked about tonight. You do not have to understand the seahorse, or the default network, or the slow, clear river of fluid waiting to rise. None of the night's great work needs your attention, or your effort, or even your belief in it. It will happen anyway, exactly as it has happened every night of your life. Exactly as it is happening right now in every sleeping person on the dark half of the earth. All it has ever needed from you is the one small thing you are already giving it. Your permission to stop. And in a little while, when you have crossed over, the real work will begin. The day you lived through today, this particular ordinary day, with its faces and its words and its small joys and frustrations, will be gently lifted from the temporary store and replayed in the dark. Sped up, sorted, some of it strengthened and kept, some of it allowed to fade. The self you have carried all day will be quietly set down so it can be cared for. And the spaces between your brain cells will open. And the slow, clear river will rise and begin to run, washing the day's debris out toward the edges and away, keeping clean the place where you live. None of it asks anything of you. Your only task, the only thing you have to do, is the thing you are already doing. Let go. Think of how strange and how lovely this is. The universe is mostly made of an energy we cannot see. The dark energy that fills the empty spaces and quietly moves everything. And you, lying here, are mostly made of the same kind of thing. Most of your mind is the part you never see. The deep current, the default hum, the dark energy of a single human being, running on through the night, whether you are watching or not. The thinking self you take to be all of you is just the bright ripple on the surface. And the moment that ripple finally goes still, the moment you stop paddling, is not the moment you switch off. It is the moment the truest part of you, the part that was always there, is finally free to do its work. You are, In the most literal sense, anyone could mean it. A creature that mostly lives in the dark. A river that does its deepest work when the surface goes quiet. A mind whose most important hours are the ones it spends not thinking at all. So there is nothing to hold on to now, and nothing to figure out, and nowhere at all to be. The ideas we walked through tonight will still be here in the morning, and so will the current, running on without you, asking nothing. Let the day go now. Let the faces and the words and the small unfinished things of today loosen their grip and drift away downstream, to be sorted and kept and cleared while you sleep. Let the thinking self grow quiet. Let the alpha waves roll. Let the spaces open and the slow river rise. Let the whole vast hidden majority of you, the part that needs you to step aside, finally take over for the night. You have done the only thing that was ever asked of you. You have stopped steering. You have let go. And now, as the surface goes smooth, and the current carries you down, and the deep quiet work of being alive goes on in the dark, all by itself, there is just one thing left for you to do. And it is the easiest thing in the world. Let the ideas drift away like leaves on the water. Let your breathing carry you, and let yourself gently, completely fall asleep.